If you need to implement a landing page really fast for your business or your website and you want to leverage Tailwind here, this video is for you. Because by the end of this video, you will learn how to create, using Tailwind, such landing page, which is completely responsive. We will write only markup here, but I generated a React application to write it there because it is simple to set up a Tailwind inside React. And if you don't need React but just Tailwind, this is totally fine. You can use the same classes and it will work out of the box. So here is our app component where we will write the whole markup of our landing page. And the first thing that we want to implement is this header. So we have a logo on the left and these all buttons on the right. But it is much more complex than that, because when we're resizing our header, you can see that all links disappear and we're getting this icon to toggle a menu. Now all these links are appearing after our icon as a drop-down. So let's start here with our header, which should be fixed on the top. Why that? Because when we're scrolling, we want always to see the header. So it is fixed and full width, and its background must be white. Inside we need a navigation with a small padding on the top and on the bottom. This is by padding epsilon 2.5. And as we have on the screen the left part and the right part, it makes sense to use here flags. This is why here let's create a class with flags. We want to wrap it, so flags wrap, item center, justify between. And actually this construction we will use a lot, because typically we want flags with the space between items and we want to align them vertically. Additionally, here is max width screen XL, so it should not be bigger than extra large screen. Also a small padding on the left and on the right, and we want to position it in the center. As you can see on the left part of our header, we have an icon and a title. This is why here let's create a link to our home page. And as we want to align to items, we again need here flags and items center to align them vertically. Now inside here will be first of all an image, which is logo.svg, and our class name here is height 6 and margin right 3. And when we're on the smaller resolution, we want a height of 9. After our image, we need a span with the title, and it will be length. And here let's add a class name for bigger text. It will be text XL, and it should be bold, so font semi-bold. As you can see in browser, we rendered our header, and here on the top you can see our logo and length text. Now the main question is from where this image is coming from. And inside public I have these 4 images, it's feature 1, hero, logo, and these are only 3 images that we will use in this application. And you can download these images in the description box below in the source code. After our left part, I actually want to start and make it responsive. Just to remind you, here in the project you can see that when it is smaller, we see here a button, nothing is here, and when we open it, we see our list of items. Which actually means on the smaller screen, we render this button and the list of items afterwards, and they are columns, and on the bigger screen we don't see this button, and all these links are here as a row. This is exactly what I want to implement. Here we need a button, and the class name will be LG hidden, which means on the bigger screen it won't be visible, and inside I will put an SVG for this icon. But when we click on this button, we want to show our items, which actually means we need some state. Again, if you are not using React, you can simply use add class or remove class for our list. But as we have here React, I will add here a variable for open state. It will be isMenuShown and set isMenuShown. And this is a useState hook, which is a boolean, and by default it is false because by default our menu will be closed. Now here is our button, and when we are clicking on this button, so on click event, we want to set isMenuShown to another value, so it will be not isMenuShown. So when it is closed, we're clicking, our menu will be opened, and vice versa. As you can see now, this button is not rendered, but when we resize the browser, this button appears. And after our button, I want to render our list of pages. So let's create here a div with class name, and we want here conditional classes. Why is that? Let's check this out. I want here LG flags because we want items as a row for large monitors. This is why we need items center and justify between. We also wanted to take full width, and again on big monitors we want width auto. And additionally I want to apply here LG order 1, because on the big monitors we first have our menu and only then a button, which actually means in smaller monitors it's the icon and then a list, and in the bigger monitors we see a list here before our button. And the last here is a variable hidden, because we don't want to render our list always, so we are checking is menu shown. If yes, then it's an empty string, in other case it will be a hidden class. Now inside I can write menu and let's check if it's working. So as you can see we have menu word on the right, so our menu is rendered. Now we are making it smaller, and as you can see the whole menu disappeared, because by default is menu shown is in false. Now we are clicking here, and as you can see menu was rendered. Obviously it is not correct that it jumps here, but we'll see if it is fixed when we move this menu to the next line. And in order to do that inside our div, we want to render a list of items. This is why it's UL. Again, it is flags, and flags call, because we want to render them as columns, but in LG it will be flags row. And also inside LG we want a bigger space between all these items. This is why here let's write space x8, which means this is horizontal space. Also we need margin top, because we have a header on the top, and font medium. Now let's add here at least one item so we see if it's working. Inside live we have a href, and our class name is text white, then background purple 700. It has rounded corners. It must be a block with padding horizontally and padding vertically. And inside let's write home. As you can see it is still not fixed, which means I made some typo. And inside my code here on the top I can see that I wrote flex wrap not correctly. So it should be flex wrap. Let's check again. As you can see now this link is positioned correctly. And we can open and close our menu. Our home link is there, so we can copy paste a li and create other links. Let's name it company, but it will be a bit different because our first link home is an active link. This is why it is purple. But here we need to change our colors. Here it will be hover, text purple 700, and text itself will be text gray 700. As you can see, company is rendered here and we have a nice purple hover. Now we can copy paste it again several times for all other links. And it is marketplace, features, team, and contact. As you can see in browser, everything is rendered correctly, and when we are going to the large screen, we have a nice space in between them. Our header is ready. The next step is to render our first section with this image and the text on the left. But the problem is here that inside React we can't render several elements inside the markup, we must wrap it in some container. This is why here I will write fragment, and I will wrap the whole header with fragment, and if you don't have React you don't even need to do that. Now after header we want to create a section for us, and inside section we need a div which will be this container, so it should be smaller and the size of Excel screen. So max width screen XL, then it must be flags and align center with justify between. We want to center it horizontally, so a mix auto with padding on the top, horizontal padding, and padding on the bottom. And inside we have two divs, the left side and the right side. And on the right side we will have a div with the image. It will be an image with source hero.png. And in the first div we will have an h1 tag with the text building digital and products and brands. And after this we will have a p tag with this text. As you can see we are getting an image here on the right, but text on the left is not styled and is not centered. First of all let's center it. This is why on the div we can apply a class place self center. As you can see now it is placed correctly and we just need to style our h1 and p. So here will be text for XL and font extra bold and margin bottom 4. And on the XL monitor we want to make it even bigger, so text 6XL. Now let's style our paragraph. We have here a text of color gray 500, then font light. For medium displays the text should be LG, and for large displays the text should be XL. As you can see in browser, it looks exactly like in the example, and we successfully finished our section. We can make it smaller, and it is resized correctly. Our next section is this list of SVG icons, and realistically it is a separate section, it is just white and looks like a part of this section on the top. So let's create our new section, and here we will have a div. Again, maximum width will be screen XL, then we need a padding horizontally and padding on the bottom. And on the large screen we want a bigger padding on the bottom, and we want to center it horizontally, and it must be grid. Why is it a grid? Because as you can see here, we are rendering them as a grid with the same spacing between them. And here the grid is 6, then we're making it smaller, the grid is 3 per row, and now here it is 2 per row, which means grid is better than flex here. So let's write that we have a grid, and our grid calls by default is 2, this is for smallest devices, and then we have a gap of 8. Then for SM devices we have a grid of 3 columns, and for LG we have a grid of 6 columns. Also, I see here a typo, it's not max auto, it's a mix auto, and the last one is text gray should be 500. Now let's render a link inside. It will be href with the SVG. I'm pasting here an SVG, as you can see it takes lots of place. Most importantly, we're adding here class name h9, this is the height of our SVG, and on hover text will be gray 900. As you can see here, SVG Airbnb was rendered successfully. And again, all these SVGs you can take from the source code under the video. To avoid spending your time on the boring stuff, I will do exactly the same href and SVG for every single icon and paste here, because they are all the same. It's just a lot of boilerplate that you can take from the source code if you want to. So it is always A with SVG inside. And this is how it looks when it is rendered. It's our grid of the links with icons inside. And as you can see now, it is completely responsive, and we have a different amount of columns for different devices. Our next section looks completely different. First of all, it is grayish. We have here on the right this image, and then on the left some text and also checkboxes with the list and more text. So let's implement this now. After our section, we will create one more section with the class name background gray 50. Now inside will be a div with class name again max width screen XL. We already had it with horizontal padding and vertical padding. Also we want to center this section, and on larger screen we need a padding of 6 and vertical padding of 24. As you can see, this looks exactly like a grid with 2 columns with a gap between. This is why here it makes a lot of sense to create a div inside where we need a grid, at least on larger devices, so LG grid, and the gap between items will be 8. And also for LG we want a grid calls 2. Now inside we have our left part and the right part. And actually our right part is simply an image with source feature -1.png, and here will be class name width full. Now let's do our left side. As you can see, we have here some text, so I want to apply here again flags and item center, and inside we will have one more div with text gray 500. And now inside it will be h2, where we will render this line, work with tools you already use, and after this we have a paragraph with this text inside. So let's style here our h2. It will have margin bottom, then the text should be bigger, so text XL3, then it should be font extra bold, and text gray 900. After this, on our paragraph, let's apply a class with margin bottom, and on the large screens we want text XL. As you can see here, our image was rendered, and on the left we see our title and this p tag. After this p tag we have a line and then a list with checkboxes. So let's render a list. It will be a UL with top padding. We also need a border on the top, and this border will be gray 200. And we also need the margin vertically, and it will be 7. Now inside we can render a list, and as we have inside an icon and then space, we can use here flags, so it will be live with class name flags, align items, and margin bottom 3. Inside we will put an SVG checkbox, again with width 5 and height 5, and text purple, and margin right 2. And after our SVG we can create a span with class name text gray 900 and font medium. And inside our span we can write continuous integration and deployment. As you can see in browser, here is our first item of the list. We have here our checkbox and text. And as you can see, we need 2 more items. They're exactly the same. We just need here a li with SVG and span. This is why I will copy paste them to save time. So I just pasted these 2 li's for development workflow and knowledge management. And this is how our markup looks like. Now at the bottom, we're just missing 1 more paragraph. So after our UL, we can create here a P with class name LG text XL. So for LG monitors, text should be bigger. And inside, let's write down this text. As you can see, the text was rendered and our blog is fully responsive and works even on smaller devices. The next section is this white section with rendering of different tiers that we can buy. Let's implement this section now. So after our last section, let's create 1 more section with class name background white. And inside again, we need a div, just like before. The maximum width must be an extra large screen. Then we need a margin, horizontal, vertical, auto position on the center, and bigger margin for large screens. This is exactly the same div that we used for every single section. And as we have here 3 exactly the same things with the gap between them, it makes sense to use here grid. This is why here let's create a container with the grid, but we want a grid only starting with LG. This is why LG grid, also LG grid calls will be 3, and starting with XL the gap will be 10. Now inside we want to render this whole card and then just copy paste it. This is why here it will be a div with class name. Padding 6, we want text on the center. We also want all our text to be 900 gray with background white with border, and this border should be gray 100. Also we want to make rounded borders. This is why rounded LG. We need a shadow, and for XL the padding should be bigger. And again, all elements must be centered in the middle. And our max width is LG. This is important. Now inside we have an h3 tag with starter word inside. And here let's apply a class, margin bottom 4, and text will be 2XL. And also we need here font semi-bold. After our h3, we need a p tag with class name, text gray 500, and font light. And inside we can render text, best option for your next project. After this, we have a price. This is why here let's create a div with flags and items baseline. White is baseline. As you can see here in the example, these 2 divs are rendered on the bottom based on their baseline. This is why here items baseline. Justify center. So they are rendered on the center. And we need a margin vertically. Now inside we can create 2 spans or 2 divs, doesn't matter. And the class name will be margin right because we want a small margin and we want a really huge price font. And we also need here a font extra bold. Inside we can render that the price is $29. And after this we need 1 more span. Here will be /month and the color should be gray 500. As you can see, we rendered here our blog with started. Actually, it's not started, it's starter. Then we have a description and our price. And after our price, we have a list of configurations. So it will be our UL after the div. And here let's style our UL with margin bottom 8. Text will be on the left, not on the center. And here space y4 is to space items in between. So here let's create a lead tag with class name, and it must be again flags because we will have an SVG icon here. We want to align our items and we want a space x3. Now inside I will paste an SVG icon. Again we have here height 5 and the text green is 500. And after this we will have a span with text individual configuration. As you can see in browser, we rendered this checkbox and then text individual configuration. Now I will create all these lists, they're exactly the same, the difference is only in the text. So I placed all our lists and now we have this nice list. The last thing that we need is this Get Started button. This is why here after our UL, let's create an href, which will be our button, and inside we can write Get Started. Now here we want to apply some classes. First of all, our text must be white. We need here a purple background, it will be 600. And on hover we need a background also purple, 700. With font medium, it should be rounded, so rounded LG. The text here will be small, with some margin on the left and on the right, and some margin vertically. Our text to be centered, and this item must be a block. As you can see, Get Started button is successfully rendered, and now we can simply copy-paste twice this whole block, and we will be golden. So this is the start of our element. You can see this div. I will just copy-paste it and paste twice, one after another, and this is what we rendered. We have here 3 items, we can make our project smaller, and then they are going one after another. And the last thing that we're missing here is our footer here on the bottom. Again, this is a logo with text and then some paragraph. This is why here after our last section, let's create a footer. It will have a class name, background white, and inside we need a div with maximum width of Excel screen, paddings, positioning on the center, and bigger padding on medium and large screens. Now inside we will have a div with class text center because we want to center all information inside, and here will be a link. Inside A we will have an image with logo.svg, and its height will be 6, and we need a margin right. After this we can just render land with text, and we want to style our A. So it must be flex and item center to position it vertically, then justify center to position it in the middle, then we need margin bottom and bigger text, and it should be bold, so font semi-bold, with another color, it will be gray 900. After our link we need a span with class text center and our text gray 500. And inside we can render our paragraph. As you can see in browser, we successfully rendered our footer, we can make it smaller, and it still looks just fine. Now you should have enough understanding how to create pages with Tailwind. But what if you want to prepare for JavaScript interview? I prepared for you a free PDF that you can download with the list of typical JavaScript questions that you must know because you will get them really often on the interview, and you can download this PDF in the description under the video for free.